So, Rick and Morty. Yes, Rick and Morty episode 8 of season 3 came out, and it was Interdimensional Cable 3. Electric something? I don't know. Fuck it. Now, this episode, if you compare it to the other interdimensional cables, is definitely not as good. Which means that it's still excellent for Rick and Morty standards. Now, what's different about this episode is that it doesn't focus on random stuff. It focuses on basically the entire relationship of Rick and Morty. Now, what I found interesting about this is that the episode first starts with uh, everything that Morty has done, every mistake that Morty has done, and everything that he regretted, and it was removed from his brain. Now, yes, it does start like that, but then the episode escalates. It goes to every mistake that the family has done that Morty wanted to forget, to every mistake Rick has done that Rick wants Morty to forget. Like, for example, don't take everything for granted instead of granted. You know, those kinds of little things. Now, the interesting part of this episode is that it reminded me of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Now, if you don't know what that is, go watch the movie. It's with Jim Carrey and Kate Blanchett. It's a amazing movie, and because of this movie, Jim Carrey even has an Oscar. Yes, an Oscar. Now, back to Rick and Morty. This episode was very different from Interdimensional Cable because of the fact that it had events that played from Rick and Morty's lives. For example, when they were abducted by an alien collector, they contacted NASA to create a space shuttle to save them, basically leaving the astronauts inside the collector's cage while Rick and Morty leave. Or Morty thinking that his new professor was actually on the moon, proving that he was on the moon, but pedophile stuff. Then finding out that it was just a smudge and that he had committed an act of murder. Those kinds of things. Those are just the two memories that begin this whole ordeal. Then we just get into a situation where both of them don't remember anything. And Morty just has to remember all of the bad memories that he has had. Like every bad memory that he has had that got removed, or every, good memory that he has had that Rick had removed. Now, an interesting scene here was when he got proposed by Mr. Poopy Buttholes. Now, Mr. Poopy Butthole hasn't appeared since the season 2 finale, so that is a long time. But suddenly he's here proposing to Morty, this version of Morty. Now, what I can take from this is that maybe Morty and Mr. Poopy Butthole are together. I don't know. I mean, I would ship them, but yeah, it's very complicated, and the more I delve into this, the more I am going to just lose my mind. But another important thing that I saw in it was that it was the scene with the squirrels, where Morty requests a helmet which will allow him to talk to animals, but then he figures out that the squirrels are basically Illuminati. Now, what's interesting about this scene is that Rick and Morty probably changed dimensions again. Now, first of all, we don't know how many times they've done this. We seriously don't know. Second of all, what happened to their previous reality? I mean, Rick was very serious when he said we had to leave this dimension. I mean, that's what happens when you piss off squirrels. So they probably left. They found another dimension where the family is broken up, where Jerry's living on his own, and Beth and Summer are living on their own. But also where Rick and Morty died again. Those kinds of things. Now, this episode had many references to many things. I already mentioned Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but there was also a reference to Neil Gaiman's Sandman, the guy who was chasing Rick and Morty while they had the turtle. That guy looked like Dream of the Endless. He's a DC character from Neil Gaiman's Sandman. You should check it out. It's an amazing read. We had Men in Black scenes with the Mind Eraser, Inside Out with the vials. There were also a couple of references to Gravity Falls. One of the vials said Stanford, and there was also a triangle with an eye. No top hat, but I'll take what I can get. Now, this episode ends with Summer basically coming to the bunker, seeing that both of them have lost their memories, and she's like, oh, this is situation 4. Like, this has happened before. And it probably has, because when you're dealing with memory, this kind of shit always happens. Like, it's not a constant. I mean, it's a constant. It always happens. Now, she pretty much sedates them, gives back their memories, and yeah, they think that they fell asleep while watching Interdimensional Cable. Yeah. Yeah, if only that were the case. Now, they just continue with their adventure, and that's it. That's pretty much the entire episode. They were just watching memories, and the memories were actually really interesting, with a lot of callbacks, which you will have to see while you're watching the episode. Now, the post-credit scene showed Jerry finally, after 3 or 4 episodes. Jerry has finally appeared again, and we see that he also had a memory removed from him, to a callback from E.T. The entire Smith family think that they're pursued by the government while they have an alien, and they're trying to get the alien to its home planet. Surprisingly enough, the alien was actually with Jerry. They fooled the government. And, yeah, Jerry forgot about the alien. He let him die. And, yeah. What's interesting about this scene is that the family gave him another chance. They said, alright, you can try, but if you fail, if you fuck up, that's it. This is probably the reason why we don't even see him for a long time. But why did he go into the garage? Is this like a future scene? Did he... I mean, why would he go in the garage? Where it's Rick's garage. He never does that. Why? Other than that little gripe that I had, which is gonna scratch my head, as well as the Mr. Poopy Butthole scene. Maybe the Mr. Poopy Butthole scene was, parasite thing? I don't know. I try not to think about it. Anyways, this episode, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. I mean, for Rick and Morty standards, that is pretty low. They usually go 4.5 or 5 on a scale. But yeah, that is my rating for this episode. That was my review. This is the Pop Culture Observer, and